Have you ever realized that the person who destroys your life is the one who grew up right beside you, sharing every corner of your childhood? Home? Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story, one filled with jealousy, betrayal, and a revenge so fierce it shattered my family forever. Diane, my younger sister, was always the embodiment of beauty and charm, captivating everyone wherever she winked. But few knew that every radiant smile she gave came at the cost of pieces of my broken heart. From a fake hug at her 16th birthday to silent battles beneath the cold roof of our house, I became nothing but a shadow in my own love story. Imagine waiting for a family dinner only to watch the person you love hold your sister's hand tenderly, your trust crumbling, your mind torn apart by helplessness. Have you ever had to fake a smile across the table while your heart wept in silence, as everything that should have been yours slipped away to family? I tried to forgive. I swallowed the pain deep. But when the limit was crossed, when I caught them together in our bed, I knew there were only two choices left: to suffer in silence or turn my hatred into the sharpest weapon I could wield. And in that moment, a ruthless plan of revenge began to take shape, igniting a fire neither Diane nor I could have ever imagined. Have you ever stood at that crossroads? To forgive and keep hurting, or seek revenge and risk losing your soul? My story with Diane is proof of a hard truth. In the cruelest family battles, no one truly wins. Before we begin, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Enjoy the video. If you want, I can also help with more script sections. In English, you never really notice the small cracks until the whole house comes tumbling down. My rivalry with Diane used to be fought in whispers until she started turning my dreams into ash right before my eyes dotted began quietly, almost innocently. Trevor, my first boyfriend, would drop by after school, supposedly to help me study for finals. But I knew something was off the day I'd caught him lingering in the kitchen, laughing a little too loudly at Diane's jokes while she twirled her ponytail and asked him about trigonometry subjects she'd never cared about before, at first. I tried to ignore it. I told myself Diane was just being Diane. Trevor was just being polite. Until the afternoon, I saw a note stuffed halfway into his backpack, her handwriting, a little heart over the J. Later, he broke things off with me over text, saying he needed someone more fun. I cried in my room for 3 days, my mother knocking quietly, always too afraid to ask the real questions. But every time I looked out the window, there they were, Diane and Trevor, heads pressed together by the swing set, laughing. Oblivious to the carnage left behind. College gave me a taste of freedom. Friends that hadn't heard Diane's name, campus parties without her shadow, but she always managed to find a way in. There was Cameron, the philosophy major who understood my poetry, and for the first time I thought maybe I was the lucky one. Yet one desperate call from Diane at 2 means something about a car breaking down. Tears in her voice, and Cameron, my Cameron, rushed to save her. By sunrise, everything had changed. She didn't even try to hide it. "You deserve better." "Cease," she said with that same honeyed smile. It's a peculiar kind of pain knowing the person hurting you is the very one your parents beg you to love. My father would close his book a little tighter when I came home crying. My mother would blame my bad luck with men, as if Diane's black hole gravity was natural law. Not conscious choice, but the worst cut came during my junior year in college at my friend Megan's birthday party. I brought Marcus, eager to introduce him to Megan's group. The party was golden until Diane waltzed in, brandishing her effortless confidence. At midnight, when the music was low and everyone had drifted outside for the bonfire, I caught them together, shadows tangled on the living room couch. His apology was a mumble. Her eyes never left my face. Victoria stopped my friends, started drifting away after that. Laurel is always the runner-up, they joke, not knowing how deep. Those words landed. I stopped inviting people home, crafted walls so high around my heart that daylight barely seeped through. Sometimes I'd confront her in the bathroom, voices hushed, hands trembling. "Why do you do this?" I'd beg. "Because I can." She'd whisper, lips curling in a smile that was never meant for photographs. And then, as if nothing had happened, she'd walk out, leaving me to gather my shattered pride alone. It wasn't just men. I started realizing slowly how Diane's need for conquest colored every relationship we had, even with friends, even with our mother. I watched as my closest confidant, Annie, suddenly preferred Diane's parties. Even my childhood dog began sleeping more often in Diane's room. Each betrayal stung sharper. But with every repeated wound, something inside me hardened. I became practiced at hiding disappointment, learned to patch up my own confidence in secret. If I couldn't stop Diane, I could at least make sure she didn't see me bleed. Through it all, our parents played their roles, my mother blaming me, my father asking, "Why can't you two just get along?" The silence grew thicker, the tension palpable at every holiday dinner, every forced family photo. Diane always front and center, me lingering at the edge, lost in the glare of her spotlight. By my early 20s, the simple ache of loss had mutated into something else. Darker, colder resolve. I learned the hard way that forgiveness isn't an endless well, and sometimes the only way to stop bleeding is to cauterize the wound. But I also realized the fallout of betrayal is never contained. It has a way of echoing through every room, every relationship, poisoning even the best memories. And so, the story of us two sisters locked in a spiral of love and destruction became my whole life. Until finally, I decided to rewrite the script. Fractured family and collateral damage, where broken trust tears at the very foundations of home, and the pain of betrayal radiates through every bond, every silence, every desperate attempt to. Healed up families are meant to be a shelter, but there are storms that tear even the sturdiest homes apart from within. After Diane's betrayals became too numerous to count, the fractures in our family began to grow deeper and sharper than any argument or slammed door. It started at Thanksgiving, supposedly the one day each year we were meant to put our grievances aside. The golden turkey, the smell of cinnamon in the air, the old records spinning in the background. But beneath it all, tension simmered, ready to boil over. My mother watched Diane with adoration, fussing over her plate, refilling her wine, barely glancing at mine. When conversation turned to relationships, she barely disguised her belief that my bad luck was just that luck never daring to see the pattern. My father lingered near the window, fingers tapping the glass, his discomfort hanging between us like thick fog. But it was after dinner, in the hush of the living room, that the wounds bled through. Mom poured another glass, voice taut as piano wire. "Maybe if you stopped parading your boyfriends around, Laurel, Diane wouldn't be tempted." The words stung, yet Diane only smirked, toying with her bracelet, never once meeting my eyes. Dad tried to break the tension. "Let's not do this right now," but there was no way to stem the tide. The room grew colder. Our family, once united by Sunday morning pancakes and Christmas movie marathons, now circled around a misery we couldn't name. Those rifts didn't stay behind closed doors. Friends began to notice the change. They stopped inviting both of us to the same parties. Our aunts would call less, unsure what to say. Even neighbors grew wary, small talk at the mailbox growing shorter. Questions about Diane's new boyfriends edged with caution. My childhood best friend, Annie, admitted she felt caught in the crossfire, eventually drifting away after watching too many arguments explode over the phone. With each passing holiday, the sense of home eroded. My parents, once partners, became adversaries. Mom defended Diane at every turn, muttering about how people make mistakes, while Dad retreated further, working late, sometimes sleeping on the couch, his disappointment worn on his sleeves. In my own private moments, I questioned everything. I questioned if love ever meant fairness, if trust could survive repeated cuts. Guilt gnawed at me. Was I the poison, the problem child? Or was I merely the only one willing to say the truth, out loud, that Diane's conquest had become our family's curse? There were nights when I found myself replaying arguments, words never meant for daylight, Dad's voice breaking for the first time, "Why can't you just stop hurting each other?" Or Mom's desperate shriek, "You're tearing this family apart." Diane slamming doors, tearing down whatever piece was left, calling me jealous, calling me cold. Yet, amidst the chaos, I began to feel something shift. Pain, yes, still sharp and aching, but beneath it, the roots of my own strength. I was learning, slowly, that sometimes the only way to survive destruction was to let the rubble fall, to stand among the ruins and build yourself anew. Those fractures, those late-night silences, those glances across the dining table where words failed but pain screamed loudest. They were the collateral damage no one saw coming. And through them, I learned the limits of forgiveness, but also the blazing necessity of self-preservation, the perfect revenge, tempting fate where the chaos sown at home breeds. A dark resolve and a plan takes shape that will alter all of our lives forever. Some say every heartbreak adds another stone to the wall you build around your soul. But after living for so long in the shadow of Diane's betrayals, I realized pain could be forged into something else, something sharp, deliberate, and yes, dangerous. After years of swallowing sorrow and choking on the ashes of my own happiness, an idea darker than anything I'd imagined began to take root. It started one night, lying awake, replaying every stolen glance, every smile Diane twisted into a knife. I wasn't just a victim, not anymore. I was done watching her destroy what little I had. If Diane needed to win, to conquer, to seduce, then let her. But this time, she'd be walking straight into the arms of a disaster she wouldn't see coming. That's when I found Vincent Romano. Still remember the first time I saw his photo? Classic good looks, eyes that hinted at trouble, a resume polished to perfection. But behind that facade, more than one failed business, court records, whispers of ruined women who believed his every lie. The more I dug, the more I saw not just a charming stranger, but the perfect instrument for my revenge. He was fire, and I was about to let Diane walk right into the flames. I crafted my part carefully, confiding in my closest friend, Julia, to game out every detail. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, concern flickering in her eyes, but I was more sure than I'd ever been. I created a fake investor profile and reached out to Vincent, luring him in with talk of opportunity and mystery. Our first meeting was at a downtown coffee shop, two hunters sizing each other up, both convinced they were the predator. I played the vulnerable older sister, the one who kept losing love to the irresistible beauty sitting on the edge of every family photo. "She can have any man she wants," I told Vincent, my fingers trembling around a mug I barely tasted. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be enough." Vincent's eyes sharpened. I could almost see his mind working, calculating, devouring. The bait I dangled before him soon. Orchestrating the introduction was easy. A staged encounter at my mother's birthday dinner. Vincent played his role flawlessly, showering me with attention while pointedly ignoring Diane. But as the night deepened, I saw the familiar spark in Diane's eyes, the hunger, the challenge. She leaned in, laughed a little too loud, touched his arm every chance she got. It was all so predictable, so heartbreakingly familiar, but it was different this time. Hidden beneath the surface, a current of dread pulled on me with every step. Was I truly prepared to toss Diane into the path of a man like Vincent? To watch as the trap I'd set snapped shut, knowing the devastation it would bring? Julia was the only one who ever questioned my resolve. She saw the sleepless nights, the quiet sobs in the bathroom after rehearsing every move. "This isn't who you are, Laurel," she pleaded once, catching me staring into space. "Don't let her turn you cold." But I was already past the point of no return dot when Diane finally took the bait and fell headlong for Vincent. Part of me wanted to scream out a warning. But revenge, like poison, is slow and relentless. I watched her close the door on the life she knew, step by step, as Vincent led her deeper into his web. The ache in my chest warred with a grim sense of vindication. Here at last, I was in control. Hardest part? The waiting. Each day, I'd get a call from my mother, chirping about Diane's new love. I'd see Instagram posts Diane, radiant, living in a world built on Simon's lies. Sometimes I would dream of her suffering, other times I'd wake in a panic, gasping, guilt strangling me in the darkness. It wasn't victory, it was survival. Dirty, complicated, necessary. But I knew the end was coming the moment my revenge would burst free, light up the sky, and leave nothing but ashes behind. And even as I braced myself for the cost, I couldn't turn back, because sometimes fate needs a little push. And sometimes the only way to break a curse is to become the storm yourself, descend into chaos. Diane's downfall when the trap is sprung and secrets, lies, and consequences spiral out of control, changing all of our lives forever. Revenge, I learned, is never clean. It seeps into places you never intended, turning your heart as cold as the outcome you seek. The weeks after Diane fell for Vincent Romano were a blur, a poisonous blend of vindication and dread. Each new update tightening a knot in my stomach. I refused to acknowledge it started innocently enough, or as innocent as a con can be. Diane's Instagram burst with photos. Vincent's luxury car, cocktails on penthouse balconies, new designer handbags she flaunted like trophies. Our mother gushed about Vincent's charm, oblivious to the shark circling her favorite daughter. Julia watched me closely, concern etched deep into her face, but by then I'd stopped explaining myself. This was Diane's game, I told her. I was just moving the pieces, but beneath all the glitter, shadows began coiling. Diane started missing family calls, her laughter sounding strained in voicemail messages she left at midnight quick updates. Slurred promises about paying me back for the past. I could hear it, the unraveling. 3 weeks in, it all began to rot. Diane called in tears, voice small and uncertain, a stark contrast to her usual bravado. "Someone just called from a Colorado law firm," she whispered. "Vincent says it's nothing, but they're asking about fraud, about his ex-wife and money that disappeared." I gave him access to my savings, Lau. Was that stupid? I stared at my phone, silence loud in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to reach across the void and save her. But I held back, my resolve turning brittle. Julia's words haunted me. "How far are you willing to let this go?" Soon after, police cars appeared outside Vincent's building. Diane's face drained of color as agents tore through her new life. Neighbors whispering, news vans glinting. In the sunrise, she was swept into a nightmare she never saw coming. Her bank accounts emptied, credit ruined, her name etched into legal documents she couldn't understand. Vincent, smirking as always, vanished like smoke, leaving Diane choking. On the ashes dot for the first time, my mother saw behind Diane's perfect mask. I watched as her world crumbled, pleading with lawyers, fighting back tears on the phone to Dad, blaming everyone but the daughter who had orchestrated her own undoing. Old friends turned away. Annie, my last best friend, sent a single text. "I'm sorry, this is too much." Even then, part of me wanted to step in, to save what was left. I saw flashes of the little girls we used to be, Diane terrified, reaching out for the sister who once protected her from monsters under the bed, but I didn't move. I remembered the cold nights she left me sobbing for what she'd taken. In the end, pain disables mercy. Diane's descent wasn't loud. It was a slow, choking spiral court hearings, tabloid headlines, a mugshot splashed across local news. She pleaded for leniency, tears streaking mascara down her face, shivering in a sweater 3 sizes too big. My mother stopped calling, Dad, withdrew even further, and the house that had once promised safety became a mausoleum of what we'd lost. Through it all, my own emotions were a storm, satisfaction tangled with self-loathing, grief warring with grim relief. Julia never let me forget the price. "This isn't victory," she whispered one evening, holding my shaking hands. "This is survival, but at what cost?" And that's the truth about revenge. You think you're punishing the villain, but often you're just carving out your own heart and leaving it at their feet. Diane served her time. Our family paid its price. And as the dust settled, all I could do was brace myself for what came next. The cold, uncertain search for forgiveness, if such a thing even existed for girls like us, aftermath, regret, and the search for healing, where the echoes of destruction forced both sisters to reckon with guilt, loss, and the fragile possibility of redemption. When chaos finally settles, silence can be more terrifying than the storm. After the headlines faded and Diane's mugshot disappeared from the evening news, our family was left with nothing but the ruins of what revenge and betrayal had wrought. The house was quieter now, too quiet. My mother, once the heartbeat of family gatherings, moved around with a haunted look, guilt and sorrow threading through her words when she spoke of Diane, her voice barely above a whisper. My father, once withdrawn, tried to reach out awkward, fumbling attempts at conversation with me over burnt coffee, as if apologizing for years of not seeing my pain. Neither of us knew how to stitch together what had ripped so violently apart. For Diane, the fall was brutal. Alone in Portland, with a past she couldn't shake and a future in tatters, she worked long shifts at a dingy cafe, haunted by glances from people who recognized her from the news. Old friends disappeared, whispers replaced invitations. More than once, I dreamed of flying there, sitting across from her in some anonymous booth, asking if forgiveness was possible. Yet I never sent the messages I wrote in the dark reminders that forgiveness isn't a single gesture, but a journey both of us barely knew how to begin. The guilt clung to me. I started therapy, hoping to untangle the knots of regret, anger, and a sadness deeper than I'd ever let myself admit. Julia remained a lifeline, her steady friendship, refusing to judge the darkest parts of my soul. She'd remind me gently that wounds of the past demand tending, not just burying deeper. Still, there were nights I'd lie awake, replaying everything, Diane laughing through childhood birthdays, Diane's tears in the courtroom, Diane's silence on the other side of the country. Some days, the desire for redemption outweighed the pain. On those rare afternoons, I'd find myself at the park, watching family sisters playing, fighting, chasing each other through the grass. I wondered if, in some timeline, we could have been those girls if kindness and honesty might have saved us both. Months passed, seasons shifted. Small signs of healing appeared. My mother sending a photo of a half-eaten birthday cake, Dad suggesting a road trip, a card with no return address from Oregon with only 3 words, "Still trying, Laurel." It wasn't reconciliation, but it was something to start. The hardest lesson of all was this: sometimes the damage we cause and endure can't be erased, only accepted. I stopped measuring my worth against Diane, stopped counting losses as a ledger of pain. In grief's patient shadow, I learned that growing up meant accepting the broken as well as the beautiful. Then, one gray afternoon, everything changed. At a quiet coffee shop during a trip for work, I saw her, Diane, thinner, older, hair hidden under a knit cap, pouring cream into someone's mug. For a breathless second, our eyes met. Her expression held 1,000 emotions: fear, hope, apology. I managed a small, trembling nod, my heart breaking open with all the words left unsaid. We didn't speak. Maybe we couldn't, not yet. But in that silent exchange, something shifted. The possibility not of forgetting, but of forgiving. Not reclaiming what was lost, but building something new from the wreckage. And that's where our story really begins. Amidst ruins and regret, in the small, imperfect steps toward healing, we both learned what family, forgiveness, and self-redemption truly mean. When you lose everything, what you choose to rebuild what matters most. Tell me, would you have chosen revenge or sought forgiveness first? Let us know your thoughts and perhaps your own stories in the comments below. Looking back on everything, my heart is a mix of ache and acceptance. I've learned that the scars left behind by betrayal and by choices we make in anger don't simply fade with time. Sometimes all we can do is let ourselves feel, forgive, and try to rebuild in our own imperfect ways. There are days I still wonder what if, and moments when regret whispers loud. But I also see how every hard lesson, every crack in my story, has shaped me into someone a little wiser, a little more compassionate, not just for Diane, but for myself. I know I'm not alone in carrying complicated feelings about family, trust, or forgiveness. That's why I told this story, not for sympathy, but in hopes it might reach someone else whose heart is tangled in the same struggles. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time here with me today. Your support means more than words can express. If this story touched you or made you reflect, please like, share, and subscribe to help this channel grow. And I truly welcome your thoughts and suggestions. Drop a comment below with your feelings or advice. Your feedback helps me improve, and our little community can only become stronger together. Take care, and I hope to see you in the next story. SEO-optimized. Video description: what happens when your own sister becomes your greatest rival, stealing every boyfriend you ever loved? This gripping true story dives into jealousy, heartbreak, and a revenge so powerful it shakes a family to its core. Join me on a journey through childhood wounds, shocking betrayals, and the ultimate test of forgiveness or vengeance. If you've ever felt the sting of family betrayal or want to see how one act of revenge can rewrite fate, this video is for you. Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more dramatic life stories, and let us know where you're watching from.